Welcome, everyone. We are back with the turning points. I'm glad to have you, Versan, my friend. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, always.
You're doing well. I'm doing well as well. I think we have a lot to talk today. The markets are extremely uncertain. If you have been following the crypto markets today, that was just an insane pump from BTC all the way to 90,000 and then instant dump, showing that price volatility is stronger than ever in the crypto markets. Versan, why don't you go ahead, share some thoughts? I think we had a funny comments to make.
Well, I've noticed everybody keeps reposting this guy on X, Young Hoon Kim. This guy has an IQ of 276, and he stated, if you have a higher IQ, then you may be more likely to do or to hold XRP, I'm sorry. And the funny thing is, not long ago, he was saying the same about Bitcoin. Not long ago, he was saying the same about Dogecoin. So all I have to say is, you know, he's 7 years late. So I don't know what that says about our IQ.
Nicely said, Versan. I think he failed to notice XRP when it was just 50 cents, and now he's just late to the party. And just a couple of weeks ago, he was talking about Doge. So I think that's just more distractions. And I think I would like to start perhaps talking about regulation. I think a lot of people are focusing on the price action. People are watching the charts. They are concerned that XRP dropped 5% on a daily candle, but they are missing what's happening, the real transformation that's happening behind the scenes, and that comes down to regulation. And usually it all comes down to regulation. Before major price spikes, I think it's going to happen first on the background. So we can talk about the Clarity Act, the Genius Act as well. I think that's the trending topics in the United States. If I'm not mistaken, we're going to have the Senate is going to vote for the Clarity Act, I think within a week. Correct me if I am wrong. I'm very bad with dates, by the way. And I would like to make a comparison. So in the early 2000s, the US passed the Commodity Futures Modernization Act that was called back in 2000. And that was actually a big trigger for the derivatives markets. I remember hearing about Jim Rickards talk about this in one of his books. And a lot of people were definitely ignoring this because it seems boring at first. However, this is what has triggered a massive explosion of capital towards the derivative markets in America. So we went from $100 trillion to over $600 trillion in a matter of 2 or 3 years from when this was approved. And I think this framework helped to reshape global finance and also position America ahead of the curve when it comes down to the derivatives markets. And what I see with the Clarity Act right now is that this is giving crypto a clear structure. And I think this is also going to open the gates for massive amounts of liquidity to come towards regulated digital assets. But most importantly, they are giving now a clear definition of what it means to be a utility token. And XRP fits perfectly the description of what is to be a utility token. Now, when it comes down to BTC, that's a whole different story because BTC is about speculation, and XRP, of course, is not the only one that fits this new definition of digital assets. XLM is also on the pie. So I think we're going to have a massive transformation, and a lot of people are paying attention to the price. Honestly, right now, the last thing I am paying attention is about price. And I would love to hear your thoughts about the Clarity Act and how that's going to help reshape the future of digital assets in America.
Yeah. First things first, I think it's important to note that something is going wrong with my YouTube channel. I've noticed even this stream was set to go live and it's been removed already. What else?
What do you mean? We are not live on your YouTube channel?
No. It was just removed. It just sent me a message right now saying the video has been deleted. I didn't do it. Also, a lot of my accounts, my tweets and things I've been posting recently are being suppressed again. So I'm not sure what's really going on. Yeah, no, it's live now because I just clicked it. So we'll go ahead and fix that later on. My apologies, everybody, to derail from the conversation.
Yeah, I think they got disconnected and now they are coming back. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not just that. Also, some of my posts on X, they typically get a lot of traction. And I've noticed that's just been slowing down. I'm not sure why, but it's happened before. I saw the same patterns before my YouTube channel got removed in 2021. But I haven't spoken about anything sensitive. So it's important to note that. Anyways, yeah, so there's just so much going on. The financial system is certainly at another tipping point. The Fed is intervening. You have aggressive central bank policies. You have all this geopolitical friction, and that's the Venezuela embargo with the oil. We're seeing China do the same thing. So basically what's interesting is that trillions of dollars are now beginning to be trapped in all of this. You have traditional currencies that are continuing to weaken because we keep printing. You have institutions talking about solutions that have already been predetermined. Anyways, to your point, we've been in a frenzy phase for a very long time, in a speculative phase. And I think this experimental phase is gradually coming to an end. And we're now moving to the infrastructure phase. And in this environment, you're going to see XRP and Stellar XLM, which have not been just tokens. They have been strategically engineered and positioned for more than a decade now to be the very tools to address the problems we've been talking about on this channel. So I'm thrilled to actually break this down piece by piece with you. I told you I was sick the other day, but I did everything I could to get better so I can hop on this call and discuss this with you. The Clarity Act is very complementary to the Genius Act in many different ways we don't have to talk about right now. But this regulatory uncertainty has been engineered from the beginning. It's now considered to be a roadblock, which ultimately has slowed down the adoption and public use case and even institutions. So the Clarity Act, though, is going to change the entire conversation as far as how the environment evolves, specifically XRP. This opens the doors for it to become a regulated financial tool, you could say, or instrument. And it also opens the doors for institutions like the CFTC to classify XRP as a commodity. And we talked about this years ago. We openly here on this podcast said that XRP would be a digital commodity eventually. Remember, Edo? So
multiple times.
Many times, exactly. So now we're seeing the legal frameworks that are similar to the same frameworks we have for gold and oil. Why does this matter? It matters because this means now banks, hedge funds, sovereign institutions, they don't have to operate in an environment where there's this fear and legal ambiguity. So it's being now released to the public as far as the information, like, hey guys, this is what's going to happen, even though I think they've been laying the groundwork forever. So with XRP, now it could be used, leveraged, it could be held safely, it could be traded, it could be used again for settlement and liquidity without worrying about all the regulatory crackdowns. And the Clarity Act doesn't just make XRP safer and even XLM, it actually unlocks the possibility now to bring this into the mainstream. And that's exactly why institutions are slowly integrating XRP into their treasury operations and going to be using this, of course, for cross-border payments without the fear of legal risk and so forth. So I gradually believe that over time, it's going to be revealed piece by piece that XRP is going to function very similar to a reliable digital gold in a sense, or a bridge asset in global finance as a commodity, basically. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, totally agree. Basically, the Clarity Act is giving crypto structure, is giving crypto clarity, and now they are dividing these digital assets in multiple categories. We have digital commodities with payments, settlements, and utility. We have investment contract assets, and then we have into a complete different category, stable coins, which is also going to regulate stable coins that has a huge chance to have consequences on unregulated stablecoins that are not backed by tangible assets or are not backed one-to-one to the US dollar. For example, we know Tether is one of them. I think that will be possibly destroyed by the Clarity Act. I mean, they already moved their headquarters outside of the United States. There will be also a clear distinction, a clear definition of what the SEC is responsible versus what the CFTC is responsible. And basically, the SEC is going to come with frauds and issuance of tokens. I think they're going to deal with the securities, in other words. And the CFTC is going to control trading, liquidity, and derivatives market. Hence why they have classified XRP as a commodity fitting on the same category as Versan said, as gold and treasury. So I think that puts XRP in a complete different category. And what becomes really interesting is that I think this time is very important that people don't hold to tokens that have no intrinsic value, because these tokens are basically falling out of jurisdiction. They are not going to be regulated. There won't be legal clarity for those assets, and that's 100% correlated with one of the predictions of Brad Garlinghouse, that's 99% of the cryptocurrencies would simply disappear because they have no intrinsic value. And right now, with a clear definition of what is an utility token, they have defined it as a mature blockchain that it's used sorry, my English today is not the best. So
terrific,
it's a mature blockchain with its native use case values comes from the utility, and that's precisely what the XRP ledger is about, and the native token XRP. So I think it's time that you need to minimize your exposure to the crypto markets in general, but you need to increase, that's not a financial advice, but increase your exposure to regulated digital assets. So how comes that's in the practical way? Get rid of meme coins, get rid of speculation, get rid of tokens built on top of ERC20 ecosystem that have no clear definition, no clear use case, that they don't fit as a bridge currency, and they were just there because someone has pumped them artificially with unregulated stablecoins. You get what I am trying to say, Versan?
I'm listening to you.
Yeah.
It's just I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure this YouTube thing out. It's
okay. I think you are live now. I think the people can also let us know if we are connected to YouTube, because at times I was thinking also it was not connected on my channel.
Yeah, a little embarrassing. So it's no.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah. All right. So losing my train of thought here. Okay. Okay. I personally have talked about this for many years. I do believe XRP's status eventually will be treated as a commodity, and that will basically position itself as a digital equivalent to gold. And you got to think about this deeply. And I've tried my best to articulate this. I really don't understand how the structure is going to play out. I think I can trend forecast it or anticipate it, but there's going to be an advantage that gold cannot match. And that is really speed and liquidity settlement for a digital era. And if you look at traditional gold, yeah, it has value, but it's heavy, slow to move. It's very cumbersome. It's not easy to move around. Same way people treat Bitcoin, even, they say you could carry it around, cross borders, so forth. But XRP, on the other hand, it kind of complements gold in many ways. I think it just is going to be treated differently because it is a bridge currency for different fiat currencies across the borders, across other financial systems. I don't think this is hypothetical. I will tell you right now, it is not theoretical. If you look very closely at the frameworks that have been outlined by the very same institutions that pretty much run the freaking world, all this has been in motion for a very long time, and they are actively enforcing these kind of rules and regulations from the top down to ensure that the new financial system has some sort of anchor, which is gold. And if you look at the regulations, everything we've been covering over the years, everything that is gradually being released to the public and all the researchers are talking about these days, it's all about liquidity management. It's about settlement procedures. It's about transparency and auditing, which is very interesting. What are they talking about auditing, right? They're establishing the frameworks where they can pretty much set the stage for mass adoption of compliant technologies, sure, but it's going to be a system that is going to be designed to maintain stability. Stability, in my opinion, is trust. Trust is metals, right? So you're seeing the same qualities that have historically been associated with traditional banking and even gold-backed reserves gradually come into the picture. So it's just very important to understand this. And I think those who truly understand how the merging between physical assets and digital assets is complementary and how it's coming into play, you're really going to be the ones who are positioned at the head of all of this.
I 100% agree, Versan, and I think it's very interesting that XRP now is collateral for derivatives, because collateral is what institutions post to secure leverage, manage exposure, and operate at scale. And that means that it could require them to take XRP out of circulation. I think that's really on the cards. I think it gets locked in institutional custody. Historically talking, that has happened with gold. And this can contribute for a supply shock for XRP. We are talking about the fundamentals, and the fundamentals really matter in these moments because XRP can operate freely as a neutral bridge currency. And I really think at the end of the day, we're going to have a massive supply shock for XRP. Now, slightly changing the tone of the conversation, I want to talk about something that happened yesterday. I'm going to bring this to the screen. And it's also something we have been warning people for a long time. And that's about the Marshall Islands launching the world's first blockchain-based UBI on Stellar blockchain. Oh, but the most interesting part is that that's designed for universal basic income. So you see where this is going. We have been talking for a long time that Stellar's motto has always been about banking the unbanked, and they have focused more on the micro payment side of the equation versus Ripple that focus on institutional grade use case. So right now, this is beyond just what we think about cryptocurrencies. This is a global reset. I can't put this in other words. And I want to hear your thoughts about this, Versan, because it's very unique how they already mentioned in the universal basic income, which if you go back 5 years ago, this was considered to be a conspiracy theory.
It's not, obviously. Banking the unbanked is pretty much their motto. And what I find very interesting, I used to talk about this a long time ago. If anyone remembers when XRP Lion attacked me, do you remember that, Edo? Because I'd like to share a story here. And I wrote a very detailed response. Sadly, I deleted it because, I don't know, I was trying to be professional, whatever that means these days. And I responded to him politely. And basically he said, no, there's not going to be a CBDC. There's not going to be a universal basic income. That's all nonsense. And I said to myself, you know, one question only. How the hell are you going to account for all the billions of people on the planet if we're only a very small community investing in this stuff, talking about it, potentially participating in it, right? What are you going to do for everybody else? How are they going to transact? How are they going to be included in this new financial system we're so, immersed in, right? And it becomes very clear they're going to have some sort of way to transact, and it's going to have to be digital. If fiat currency debasement is only accelerating, then what's the alternative? It's going to be some sort of digital money. The other side of this is that most people have been impoverished. People do live in poverty. It's true. Borrowing is all-time highs. Defaults at the same time, all-time highs. When you start to look at the bigger picture here, and people have no assets, what's it called? Ninja, no income, no job, no assets. And just look at Generation Z. They are pretty much defined by welfare. That's how Mandami got elected in New York. Okay. And I don't want to go down the political rabbit hole, but it's the truth. They are Generation Z because it's pretty much the end. You know, it's the end of the alphabet too. What's next? God knows, maybe some computer. or the combination between the two. And that's part of the whole transhumanism agenda. Anyways, there's definitely a motto here of banking the unbanked after they bankrupt the whole world, which they are actively doing right now. Then you start to look at the relationship between XRP and XLM. It's complementary. You have central bank money, you have retail money, and it's both digital. It's interesting because XLM functions very similar to XRP, but XLM is all about banking the unbanked, financial inclusion. It strengthens local economies. It empowers individuals, which is a bunch of bullshit, but you can make a lot of money by owning it and participating in it. At the same time, everything Ripple has been doing, mark my words on this, you do your own research to confirm it, but everything Ripple has done, Stellar has been doing the same thing right behind them, and nobody has been reporting it, including myself. But I've been paying attention. So XLM is emerging as a universal basic income kind of solution, banking the unbanked, providing financial inclusion. And I actually have documents about this. It's also on the Patreon of the CBDC, and Stellar is at the forefront of it. So, I mean, there's an entire rabbit hole over there as well. But I do believe XRP and XLM are fully integrated into the financial system, into the rails. And I'm talking about the compliance behind it. There's plenty of research of this. So I do see it having an emerging role. I agree with you, Edo.
Yeah, definitely. We talk more often about XRP, but XLM is not supposed to be left aside. There's a lot of important innovations that are happening on Stellar blockchain. And once you understand who is truly behind Stellar, you can almost put Stellar and Ripple as playing on the same level field. I think they are outperforming every single company in the crypto space. So it's definitely something that we want to be paying attention. And I truly believe XLM, I don't know exactly the price of XLM now. Allow me a second to just check precisely after this drop today. But Stellar is trading at 20, XLM is trading at 21 cents. It's not a financial advice, but I see this as extremely undervalued considering its future potential. And there is one quick question that someone addressed to me and I want to answer is that a lot of people in Europe are trying to find ways to trade crypto without KYC. And I have proposed them to do that in one exchange that I know, but it turns out that there is a limit. So you can trade without KYC, this person is asking, but it's up to $20,000. So once you reach the limits, they might ask you for KYC, but I found a new alternative and I just drop in the comments if you are interested. And that has a limit of $500,000 per day. So if you got problems with the 20,000, this is a good solution for anyone that wants to trade without KYC. Versan, I think we have a lot to talk about the Japanese question, right? We had this on our bullet points. Perhaps you want to start talking about this. I need a second to pull out our bullet points here. Since we got the video disconnected, I got a bit confused here.
Me too. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Audience as well. Jay Claver has been talking about the Japanese carry trade for a while. I would like to give him credit for that. To explain it maybe from a different perspective and angle. Essentially, this kind of ties back to what I said at the very beginning of this conversation. There's a lot of friction in the financial system. And as explained before, Japan's reverse carry trade is really a significant, often overlooked forces in global financial markets, because what they've done is kept rates low, which means people could borrow low yield yen and invest it in higher yield assets abroad. And that would be here in the United States. One of them, for instance, is the silver derivatives market, the paper trail. The fact that they're raising rates now, okay, this puts leverage traders in a very uncomfortable position. Effectively, now they have to be squeezed and return the capital back to Japan to meet those margin calls, right? And because of this, it creates a lot of friction in the system. And that's where market shifts and interest rate changes. Now, this is the reverse carry trade, okay? So the reverse carry trade now indicates that money has to go back to Japan. And as trillions and trillions of dollars start returning to Japan, it creates more friction in the markets and they have to adjust liquidity. And that's where everything begins to tighten. Because of this, the implications are massive. Okay. That means capital was previously moving freely and now it's trapped in an adjustment cycle. And because of this, you have traditional banking infrastructure, legacy banks, which struggle to get the capital efficiently due to the regulatory restrictions because of the geopolitical tensions and so forth. Now, when you put this into context with emerging digital infrastructure like XRP, which is a cross-border remittance protocol, it essentially solves all of this because it can act now as a neutral global bridge, which means it could move, facilitate instantly liquidity and cross-border liquidity settlement without being subject to the same frictions that are part of the legacy banking system. So that's really the crux of the discussion here, whether XRP gets used in such a circumstance. And overall, the trajectory of everything happening in the world, including what's happening with Venezuela and China, we talked about this in the beginning here, it's creating friction. And I put that all in the description. In fact, even on the tweet, try to give people a macro analysis on this. And because of this, you have an accelerating demand for these kind of solutions that, in our opinion, and based on what we've been discussing for many years, that it's already been laid out. And interestingly, it was Martin Armstrong who told me this off record when I confronted him about the XRP debacle and said to him, why don't you ever explain XRP to me, right? And he laughed and he said, listen, Versan, the IMF and the central banks and the global financial institutions, they have the solutions ready, but they're hiding it behind the curtain. You know what he told me? And I've repeated this message on the podcast. He said, they are waiting for the right geopolitical crisis to roll it out. Now, basically everything is converging and it's only accelerating, whether it be now, 5 years from now. I don't really care anymore. I don't focus on the time frames or price predictions. I really don't do that anymore. I just look at the macro trends, and the trajectory is pretty damn obvious if you're paying attention.
Yeah, and we have not to forget that Japan doesn't produce any oil, so they depend 100% to imports. They can't produce it internally, so inflation is highly dangerous for them. And with the yen losing its purchasing power and the interest rates rising for the first time in decades, that will push a structural shift. That's what we call the carry trades. And once they start to force massive US Treasury selling, the Federal Reserve is going to have to find buyers for that treasury. And what's going to happen next? They have to turn on the printing machines. And every time they turn on the printing machines, they further devaluate the currency. And it's even more important for us to be positioned in assets that are in appreciating assets and not to be sitting on US dollars. But it's not only US dollars that's going to affect every single currency in the world. It's not an isolated problem of Japan or the United States. And the proof is that if you go back 5 years ago and you compare the prices of goods and services in 2019 before the pandemic, which, by the way, was orchestrated to trigger economical chaos, you will notice that prices are rising in the entire world. It's not an isolated problem of America. In Europe, for the first time, we had inflation. And the interesting part is that I think the inflation numbers came out for America in the last week or so, and I think they mentioned 3%, but I don't think that's true. You guys in the comments that are based in the United States can let me know if you think that numbers are accurate, but I really have a feeling that we are not being told the truth about those numbers, because I can confirm that the situation in Europe keeps getting worse. And I know people are also I was just hearing the news about I'm Italian, by the way. I don't watch often the news from Italy, but it's funny because I was hearing that people are taking on credits and loans just to buy the Christmas gifts in Italy. Yeah, so this is happening. Same in America.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was telling a story about this, I think last week, where the lady at the bank, I overheard her while I was filling out some paperwork, and she was saying, "It's that time of the year. It's Christmas. I gotta borrow more money to buy gifts."
Yeah, and by the way, Europeans don't have the same. They don't do it in the same way as an Americans with the debt. We are not a debt-based society to the same degree as America. But when you see that Europeans are now taking on loans to buy Christmas gifts, you really understand that the situation is degrading very quickly. And I'm sorry to tell you, but labor won't outpace inflation. I think you need to find appreciating assets just like XRP has outperformed inflation, gold has outperformed inflation, silver, but the economical situation just keeps getting worse, and this is a universal problem. And I truly believe that with artificial intelligence, all of this laid out simultaneously makes it the perfect storm for a global reset. Hence why we start to see news and articles about a universal income. That's how they prepare the subconscious minds of the masses. I mean, you take these words 5 years ago, CBDCs, universal basic income, digital IDs. This was all a conspiracy theory. And guess what? Now you start to pick it up from mainstream searches. You start to see that they're talking about this in Europe. They're talking about this in America. Just 2 weeks ago in Cyprus, I go out for a coffee, and guess what? There were no employees. I got a coffee prepared by a machine for the first time ever. I mean, this transformation is playing out in real time. I truly believe we yet don't see the real consequences in the jobs markets yet. I think this is the first phase. They are testing it out. But once this hits for real, I mean, once we truly have robots replacing human beings and we truly have artificial intelligence that's going to trigger massive layoffs, and that's happening, 100% is going to happen. Now, combine that with inflation, combine that with all of this perfect storm, and hence, when I truly believe we're going to have blockchain technology playing a pivotal role on this global reset. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. I don't believe we're going to have perhaps the carry trades in the next week, XRP to $1,000. I don't think that's how that's going to play out, although I don't say that's impossible to happen, but I think that's going to be a gradual transformation that's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years, and inevitably XRP's price has to follow this transformation, and that's how I think it's going to play out.
Yeah, you're spot on. Give me 1 second here, guys. I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure this shit out still. Oh, okay. Well, no, to your point, one of the also another thing to complement the carry trade becoming more friction in the system is the fact that we are debasing the currency of the investments that people are borrowing the yen from, and to invest it abroad. Remember, they're investing it here. And essentially, we're depreciating these assets because we keep debasing the currency as well because of money printing. Every time a central bank engages in money printing, the value of the cash is being eroded. So what does that naturally do? Again, these converging forces altogether, you have capital that's being pushed into scarce assets with intrinsic value. And I still believe gold and silver still are complementary monetary anchors, whether people see it or not. They have the historic role for this. They are treated as a store of value for the ones who know what the hell they're doing in this ecosystem. Like real investors, man, they know the value of gold and silver. They know the value of tangible assets, okay? It's pretty much the youth that doesn't really have a clue about any of this. And that's why raising awareness is essential now more than ever, because many are still unaware of the scale and the speed of how things are changing. And that includes the job market as well. What's very interesting is one of the forces that are really driving the debasement of currency and at the same time the evolution of currency is the fact that we are debasing everything, and that is essentially putting us in a situation where we need digital infrastructure that provides stability, right? But at the same time, it has to meet the criteria for the digital era. And essentially, I think this is what's really raising the discussion about digital asset-backed currencies, cryptos that are essentially backed by hard assets. And you could do this with blockchain. You really could. And that's all being done through fractionalization, tokenization. And again, the frameworks for institutional adoption outline this already. This is not coming from us. It's already been there.
Yeah, and just imagine if we have treasury selling, that could perhaps break the trust in the US dollar, which has already been weaponized against Russia with sanctions on the SWIFT, for example. I mean, Russia was moving towards gold. They were making trades in gold with India and other countries because Russia has been kicked off of SWIFT. So imagine breaking the trust in the US dollar means that there would be a demand for a new world reserve asset. And guess what? An asset that's not issued by any country, an asset that has no counterparty risk. Which asset fits that role? Well, that's XRP. That's exactly what XRP was designed. And that's why I think this transformation in the end of the day is going to ultimately be the trigger for XRP to emerge as a global reserve currency, ultimately replacing Nostro Vostro accounts. But as I said before, that's not something that happens overnight. Versan, I think, let me check our bullet points here, because I don't know which one was supposed to be the next. And sorry, today we are a bit lost with this YouTube getting disconnected thing. It kind of messed up with our organization of the topics here.
Yeah.
I think the final topic was more likely precious metals, gold and silver. You want to make some comments on that? Because I see that gold keeps making new all-time highs.
Yep. I love gold and silver. I've been talking about it for many years, and I've encouraged our audience, our listeners, to consistently be disciplined as far as every month, if you can, and anyone can do this that has income, you put a little bit aside for gold, a little bit aside for silver. You don't have to buy a full ounce. You can buy fractionalization of gold too. Sure, the premium is a bit higher, but nonetheless, you're protecting your currency, your purchasing power, the money you work so hard to earn. Okay, it's not fair that these unelected politicians get to subject, your purchasing power for how hard you work. And that's the problem. We're working harder and harder for less and less. I make very good money, but I've shared this with you privately and publicly here with the audience that I make good money, but even for me, I can feel the pinch, and that's not fair. It's not fair to anyone. And I'm not struggling, but if this kept going on and regulations were being stalled, it could eventually hurt all of us. It really could. So we're all being impacted by this. We're not different in any other way. We're all subject to the same rules. And if you look at what central banks are doing in major financial institutions, they're all stockpiling gold and even silver now. Okay. They're doing this because it's a hedge against the debasement of fiat currencies that they are responsible for. So it's rational to have some real physical assets, especially if we're going into a digital ecosystem with digital IDs and surveillance. Okay. That's the side people don't like to talk about in this ecosystem. Anytime I've spoken these facts, I've gotten attacked and I've lost support from my community, which is utter bullshit. If I'm here trying to present the facts to you that I'm not deciding them, they're already out there, I would expect everybody to do a little bit of due diligence and look into it diligently. Yes, there's going to be digital IDs. So having physical metals is outside the system. Do you understand? That's how important it is. So we understand that in the digital era, which we are being pushed into and we have no control over, you must participate so you have skin in the game. But if you look at physical assets, they're going to complement these digital currencies. We're treating it the other way around. Even here on this discussion, we're talking about how XRP can complement gold, right? Maybe it's the other way around. Gold can complement what XRP is built to do, be the bridge, but it's really gold. that is becoming the reserve asset and currency for the entire financial system. And you're going to have some sort of digital counterpart. I wrote an article about this on X the other day. I encourage everybody to read it. It's very short. It's engaging, but more importantly, it gets you to ask the right questions. Okay. I'm just going to flash this here for everyone to see. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Asset-backed digital currencies. Mark my words. I would say into 2026, as we approach the anniversary for this country, I think Trump and Judy Shelton explained this to me, including Andy Schectman, that they were going to back our debt to a degree with some physical assets, which would be gold, in my opinion. And if that is the case, then you're talking about a higher gold price, lowering rates. You're going to see a higher gold price. You need metals in your portfolio, whether it's 5%, 10%, doesn't matter. Yes, I'm all in an XRP as well. You know, been here from the beginning, I think. But I love the metals. I love the metals too.
We are heavily invested on XRP. I think I can speak for both of us. And yes, central banks have been buying large sums of gold. They are the greatest net buyers of gold. It's kind of the opposite of what they did in the 80s and in the 90s. So I think they are really preparing for some big transformation in the financial system. Historically, it's always been like that. And you spoke about unelected politicians. Well, if you think the situation is bad in the United States, we are full of them. In Europe, these people have never been elected by anyone, yet they decide for us. They are taking decisions, and ultimately our only protection is to find the hedge against inflation. And so far, this hedge has been precious metals and a few selected group of digital assets. Versan, I wish you could share a video that you posted on your Instagram yesterday when they asked Christine Lagarde, president of the European Central Bank, if she thinks BTC is digital gold. I loved that video. If you have this on your hands, you could share here. And by the way, drop some questions. I think we can also take the final minutes. Today, the live will be a bit shorter. I told Versan before we start, it's more late at my time zone, so I was very tired. I already recorded multiple videos today, so perhaps you guys can also drop some questions. We're going to be happy to answer the questions. And by the way, I want to make a test because I see a lot of people say that my mic sometimes is too loud. I'm going to change the settings. It's just a button, and you guys tell me if this will improve the sound quality, because I do read the comments. And although I have bought a new mic recently, but I keep getting that it's too loud. So
I think
well, I just switched. I don't really know what these settings they really mean, but who knows? Maybe it got better. Let me know in the comments. I see you have something. Do you want me to bring to the screen, Versan?
No, that was earlier. I just wanted.
That was earlier.
Article.
Yeah.
Yes. Listen, your quality of your sound is good. Okay, Edo, I can hear you. If somebody else can't hear you, it's most likely their audio.
They say it's too loud. I don't know. I changed something now, and later I can watch the live and see what's better.
I see what they're saying. And they're saying mine is too low now. I don't understand. Listen, a few questions I saw. What's the best hardware wallet? There's a few. I encourage you to have multiple hardware wallets. It's just another layer of security. Having a ledger still works. I know a lot of people have posted some negative things about it in the past. I think they're wrong. I've never been hacked. I've never had issues with it over 6 years now. I've looked into the people who have left negative comments. They have been reckless with their information. I think also you should have a separate phone that's not connected to AT&T, Verizon. You need a different cell phone, if you will, for all of this. Give me 1 second. Yeah, my mic's connected. I don't know what.
It's working good. It's working good.
Yeah. So basically, Ledger's good. Descent is, well, it's pretty good too. It's more user friendly in my opinion. You can have a tangent. But the point is,
I have one here. I'm using this Elipal with titanium plates. This is also working. It's a new one that I got recently. It's so far working good.
so I've had one of those before, and I actually experienced an issue with it.
Yeah, interesting to know.
Yeah, but see, I've heard different stories. People saying they've had issues with their descent. Probably the least is descent, but just have different wallets to protect your digital assets. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're investing a lot of money into XRP or other cryptocurrencies, you might as well spread that risk out, spread that security too. There's nothing wrong with it. Having Faraday bags are important. Yes, quant is a long-term hold. People ask me all the time why I don't talk about it. I do explain quant in my private sessions, which people can book on my website, where I discuss a variety of different topics and other complementary digital assets, their use case, and so forth. I do have positioned QNT quite a bit, actually. SHX too.
We talk so much about SHX. It's very cheap now. It's a good entry, in my opinion, not the financial advice, but I have been buying SHX today and yesterday.
Somebody asked if XRP and XLM will go up together. I think they will. I once tweeted in 2022 how they mirror each other in many different ways. Their price movements were actually mirrored, and they were moving very simultaneously together. They're also being regulated by the very same institutions that are backing, Ripple and what Stellar are doing too. And they have a complementary relationship. So it only makes sense to, analyze like, hey, you know what, maybe when regulation is here, these two complement each other in many different ways, where they would be in synchronization as they go forward. So
there is one question. Perhaps you can help me with that one. There are many, but what do you think about Ripple not allowed to hold more than 20% of XRP supply? I think that's because of the CFTC regulation. They have to fit XRP in the category of utility token. And I think there was some definition there that prevented one single entity to hold a large sum of tokens. So I think that's the case. And remember, the escrow is there for a reason. Don't fall for the narrative that the escrow is supposed to dump XRP on the markets. That's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
We have made several videos about the escrow you can find in our channels. I think Versan once gave the best explanation of the escrow ever. I think he outperformed David Schwartz on that one, and he was very sick when we did that live streaming. You can find in the previous episodes of the Turning Points.
That was fun. I couldn't believe it. I was like sick. I lost like 15 pounds, and I was explaining the escrow like this little, looked like bones back then. Now I'm all a little fat. Somebody asked about the why Ripple has to have a certain threshold, right? So under the Clarity Act framework, if you actually read it, and most people don't read it, they just kind of read the headline. It talks about how certain companies, in this case, we would say Ripple, have to keep some of its holdings below a specific percentage. And that's designed to avoid triggering a security classification. You see the difference? Because XRP was treated not as a security. So now they have to meet other criteria to not trigger the security classification. So it's all about housekeeping, you could say. And which could be a key factor in scaling this globally. Because remember, if this is going to be recognized by the International Monetary Fund, you have a few things that do need to play out. You already have the sovereign adoption, means global legitimacy. You have the Clarity Act now. You have the Genius Act, which complements the stable coins that are issued by Stellar and Ripple, et cetera, et cetera. So there are certain criteria that they have to meet in order to be recognized by the International Monetary Fund. And interestingly, the International Monetary Fund has been working with Ripple from the get-go.
And we have a super chat question here about our thoughts on Flare and Flare versus XRP charts. I'm not following very closely the charts. And I do know briefly about Flare. I know also Flare is very well positioned on this ecosystem. They also work with tokenization of real world assets. And I think the most important thing that's happening behind the scenes is that they are contributing for XRP supply shock, because they have a staking on Flare, and every time someone stakes XRP on Flare, which is a rapid version of XRP, Flare then has to go and buy more XRP from the open markets. And I think the CEO is called Hugo, and I know he's very well positioned. He is very well connected in the crypto space. He's close to Ripple. So I see Flare in good eyes, but I have to be honest. I have never gone so deep on the Flare's rabbit hole, but I do know some credible people, like my good friend Karan. He has a YouTube channel and he mostly talk about Flare. So there must be a good reason why so many people, trustworthy people, are seeing Flare with good eyes. Do you want to make some comments about Flare, Versan?
I'll be honest, I don't know enough about it to make
Same, yeah.
direct comments, but I know for a fact that the global financial system that's being built, it's being engineered in such a way where you're going to have layers of complementary interoperability, where each layer kind of addresses a specific function within the flow of money. So Flare most likely will have a complementary relationship. I know who your friend is. He's very smart. He knows what he's doing. He does good research.
We can bring him one time in the show. He can make some comments about Flare.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I could learn something too from them.
Yeah.
There's not enough hours in the day to wrap your head around all kinds of things, right? You stick to a niche, you focus on it, and you try to expand upon that. And that's kind of what we do here at Black Swan Capitalists. And now we're touching into other subjects these days. But
the thing in the crypto space is that if you try to learn everything about every project, you end up knowing nothing about anything. It's just like you can split your attention to so many different projects, but of course we can have a baseline of the projects that stand out, and that's what our research is based. And of course, when we spot something unique, we can then go with a more deep research. And I think Flare deserves this research, honestly.
Yeah, well, again, it's also about what kind of financial resources you have too. If you're too spread out, you're going to make less money in this ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because being too spread out, you got to factor in inflation, cost of living. You got to factor in how much income you have. The rich people, they spread their assets around. So I'm right now kind of talking about ordinary people that have jobs, right? Anyways, to answer the Flare question. There are a lot of technologies in this ecosystem that are not really competing assets like some people would describe. They're complementary components of the same transformation. And that's how I would answer that kind of question. You have multiple layers, but you have one language of system, one system language. And I think that's how value is going to be moved in the digital age.
Nicely said, Versan. I'm looking here some questions if we still have some time. I think we are at 53 minutes.
Yeah, a few more questions. This is good. We should do a Q&A sometime.
Yeah, it's nice. I love to interact with the audience.
That'd be great. Let's make arrangements for that. I think that'd be fun. Are you going through questions?
Yeah, I'm looking for some. Yeah.
You're looking for good questions, right? I would like to be asked good questions.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of good questions. I just don't try to pick questions that perhaps we already answered, like some questions about cold wallets. I see that they are repeated, and it's normal. People have a high interest for cold wallets, and that's good, especially with uncertainty times ahead in the crypto markets. I have made so many videos. I'm praising everyone to get a cold wallet.
Yeah.
What happens if someone buys 50% of supply and lose its keys? You will lose access to the funds. I mean, once you lose the keys, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah. I saw a question here about...
I have one for you, Versan. And I know you don't do price predictions, but
Shit.
do you think gold can hit $10,000 an ounce?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Yes, I've actually on my private sessions, blackswancapitalist.io, we do discuss potential scenarios of how gold could actually reach over $20,000. In fact, it's not speculation. There's a time and place for these kind of things. It's happened in the past before where the gold price has been reset, if you will. And if you look at the trajectory of everything we just talked about, including asset-backed digital currencies, including the fact that the IMF said we need tangible real assets, and she's talking about gold. Um, Anchoring the new financial system as far as collateral, then you need to factor in the derivatives market, which is in the trillions, and all the leverage, and you need to factor in commodities. You need to factor in the fact that we're having a repricing of currencies. You got to factor in all these things. And I'm not a mathematician. I'm not going to do the math. But when you start to look at this and acknowledge what the banks have been talking about, the institutions, the powers that be, then yes, indeed, gold is secretly and quietly being bought up because of an inevitable reset of the gold price. And you're going to have a digital counterpart that will anchor that gold at a reset price. That's essentially what a currency reset is. It starts with gold. Even history shows this. So
Thanks for your answer, Versan.
yeah,
Love to hear that.
very true. I'm sure there are people out there like Andy Scheckman that could explain it far better than I did, but those are the facts.
We can bring him on the show perhaps one day and he can explain. We have a question from someone. He always watches our live. I appreciate your question. It's Dutch Libertarian.
Yeah.
And he asks if we think XRP gets backed by gold in the future. I can perhaps start answering. I have made several videos in the past about this topic, and it's not technically impossible, although I don't have a concrete answer, yes or no, but that's not impossible. Some people ruled it out as being completely out of reach, but perhaps through an algorithm stablecoin and SDRs, I truly believe that's a possibility in the future. We know that there will be an intersection between XRP and gold. I just can't tell you if it's going to be effectively backed by gold or if perhaps they're going to find a way to create link one to each other with this intersection of blockchain technology and precious metals. I want to add some thoughts on this one, Versan.
Yeah, I love the whole gold conversation. Whenever I go on podcasts, I sometimes pray deep down inside that somebody's going to ask me more about gold for many different reasons. Gold has broken away from the dollar and from interest rates overall. It's decoupled from all of it. A lot of people look at this. Ido, are you single? Are you? No. Well, gold has decoupled from the dollar. That means it's decoupled officially from fiat currencies over the world. Okay. That to me is a signal that it's not just another rally. It's not just like I've reported before, gold running because it's anticipating central banks are going to print all this money, which is one mechanism, but it really is a structural revaluation of trust in the global financial system. And when you look at the dollar and you look at World War II and the Bretton Woods moment, that's when kind of confidence gradually evaporated from the financial system beforehand. And what did they do? They returned to gold. And now the dollar at this point, through corruption and unelected officials and probably the Jesuit order and God knows, okay, the US dollar has now become a victim of its own overuse. Okay, this is irresponsibility, endless borrowing, monetary expansion so the rich can get richer, we get poorer. Okay, this all ties into gold. Now, the silent shift, while all this has been going on, central banks, they know what's coming. The rich people, they know what's coming. Institutions and you and I and our community, we do know what's coming. So what we're doing is rebalancing our portfolio strategically. Just look at the facts, right? They've been buying more gold than anyone, and even Tether is buying gold, which is so funny because Tether is backed by treasuries and they're still buying gold, not treasuries. That just indicates that they don't even give a crap about the same instruments they use to back their own stable coin. How this is so funny. Like Andy would say, it's too stupid to be stupid, right? So this is not diversification, it's preparation, okay? And the fact that gold hit 44.85 or something along those lines, that's not a speculative bubble. It's a freaking signal right? You're seeing the same squeeze on silver. So there's a historical pattern. You have also a new monetary order emerging. And this is where it gets interesting. That question somebody asked about gold and XRP. And for many years, I've reported on this. So everything I'm about to repeat again has been out there for many years. What we see happening in the new monetary paradigm is one where basically gold is going to be the base layer of trust. We see this happening. There's proof of this. And you're going to see digital assets, cryptocurrencies, blockchain, right, become the bridge to flow the value between these markets. Okay. And that's why I've always believed that XRP would come into play at this scenario, because if institutions are preparing for a tokenized real world assets, digitized collateral economy, I know I put all those big words together because it's funny, right? But XRP then as a bridge asset becomes essential. Why? Because it enables institutions now to move gold back to value instantly, whether it be tokenized or physical, in a form of a fractionalization. So what you're seeing is the merging between physical and digital value. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the architecture of the new financial system, where it's essentially programmable, sure. Wallets can be turned on and off, possibly, I hope not. Where it's interoperable, they can complement each other, flare, etc., things of that nature. But at the end of the day, it's about collateralization. Now, gold provides that foundation, and it's being done already. Okay, XRP provides the bridge. Together, what do you have? You've got a new kind of financial system in a post-dollar world, etc., etc., etc. I can go on forever.
Nicely said, Versan. And I don't know about you and the audience in general, but I do have a strong feeling, not based on a lot of factual information, although factual information also supports this feeling, but that there is something big unfolding these last 2 weeks of December, and I think could be perhaps the beginning of the global economical resets. I feel a lot of tension in the air. I don't know if I am the only one, but I think perhaps it's time for them to kickstart the global resets, and I don't know if that's going to happen through war, or I don't know if that's going to have a catastrophic event such as a cyber attack, but that's just a feeling. I just wanted to put this out.
Yeah.
You can see the tensions on the markets as well.
Yeah, a few things. First of all, yes, I'm married. I recently got married, and happy to be married. What else? Somebody asked about when is this reset happening? It's happening quietly, but day by day, at the highest levels of finance. War is certainly been a historical mechanism to reset the system. That's history, right? That's not speculation. It's a fact. So it's very possible, with all the friction and the tensions that we see happening around the world, gradually coincides with the fact that this monetary order is emerging, right? So you can kind of bridge the two without dissecting them too much at this moment. And it becomes very clear of where things are going and how they might play out. I want to send out my regards to anyone who was injured in Australia, for instance. But that was staged, okay? It was staged, and I'm not going to get into too much detail, but essentially these are conflicts and narrative management that have been used all over the world, whether it be a geopolitical crisis or Russia moving nukes, okay? It's all theatrics to get us to where we need to go, I guess, to a new kind of financial system. So history is simply repeating itself, just bigger and more aggressive, because we have digital infrastructure. And yes, the BRICS nations will be using XRP. They don't have to necessarily report it in the headlines, but essentially it's the same language model that they'll be using, and that's the RippleNet distributed ledger technology.
I have papers of them openly mentioning XRP many years ago. There is no doubts about it. I don't think they even have a choice. We have 2 more questions on the super chat, so I want to take a moment to answer them. So I want to first send a special thanks to Crypto Bob. Always a pleasure, guys. Looking forward to that Mediterranean party in the future. I hope you are talking about the yachting party in Mykonos. gonna secure your invitation on the guest list. Hope Versan is coming from the United States.
Yeah.
And there is a final question here, which I lost. And it's a question for you, Versan, but I'm trying to find here on the... I found it. Can you please recap and update on your connection to the financial advisor to the royal family in Saudi Arabia that you told us about a long time ago?
Absolutely. And
Good one.
I love this question. I'll tell you a little history about my family. First of all, my father was very connected, my real father. Okay. That was my stepfather. We were, he was a diplomat for the Saudi family. This is my real father. Nobody really knows this. And, he married my mother in Switzerland. And before we were born, they brought us back to Saudi Arabia to get us the citizenship. So I am a Saudi citizen. I was really born in Saudi Arabia. I was raised over there. I've traveled many different places around the world, and I've had a lot of experiences, even in Europe. My parents eventually divorced, and she married my stepfather. His name is Jalal Ghani, and Jalal Ghani was in the oil and gas company here in Texas, and was involved in other nuclear power and so forth. And my stepfather went to college with a few people from the royal family in Beverly Hills. Okay. This is the whole side I've never explained before. Now, my stepfather was a banker, okay, for Bank of America at the high levels. And he was dealing with a lot of international clients because he's from Yemen. He spoke Arabic, right? And my stepfather, as his relationships expanded over the years, then when I met him and my mother married him, I just realized how connected he was. He was very wealthy. And his best friend was named Khalid al-Sunaid. He was a lawyer and an advisor to one of the princes, not princess, a prince of the Saudi family. And I never knew this guy, right? But I used to play with his sons when I was a kid. Anyways, their relationship built over the years. And there was one time around 2018, we came to America. Now, 2018, my stepfather is in touch with him on a Skype call, right? People use Skype before 2020. And what happened was we were told to come upstairs, me and my brother and my sister. And, I thought I got in trouble for something. It's like, oh shit, what did I do now? We go upstairs, and my stepfather says, listen to this. And Khalid is talking to Jalal, not me, about how Saudi Arabia was getting involved in Ripple. That's all. And I know for a fact that, what's his name? Mel Carmine. He twisted my words. He twisted the title. He kind of hyped it up. But that's really what happened. So we just heard about Ripple, and we didn't know anything about it, right? Then when we heard crypto, we started thinking, oh, okay, like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Vendel and I took some time to do some research, because technically from our end, we looked at this as inside information. We were like, huh, right? Because he's connected. We started researching Ripple, and we found out XRP, and we found out that nobody was talking about it. And I'm not kidding. 1 week later, Vendel and I do the research, and it became very, very clear that this was the new reserve currency for the digital ecosystem. And we had no idea about anything. We started researching this stuff. So that's the true story. We just got lucky, really. And from a spiritual standpoint, I do believe that I'm a believer in God, and I believe that God opens up doorways and paths, and you simply have to walk through it. And that's kind of been the trajectory of my life now. And I've been learning about this. And when I fully understood it in 2020, that's when the pandemic hit. I started teaching it. Okay. So that's what happened. But we didn't have inside information. We had to do a lot of research. We had to sacrifice so much time and energy to figure this shit out.
I love this story, Versan, and I'm glad someone got to ask this question, because it's the first time I hear you talking about this in first hand. So it was definitely very interesting. And also Ripple has indeed partnered up with the Saudi Arabia government.
Yeah.
They do have a partnership. Yeah, yeah, precisely. But many more recent developments also unfolded. I remember a couple of months ago, I have seen it on the headlines again. Someone asked if I moved to Cyprus, and yes and no. I mean, I set up my tax residency there, and I need to spend 60 days in total. And I still live in Greece, but I spend like half and a half now. I go very often to Cyprus. Greece and Cyprus are very near, but I hope the tax authorities are not watching or live streaming. I'm just joking. I'm doing that in a legal way. And Versan, I think we can wrap up. We are about 1 hour and 10 minutes. Before the live, I told Versan, please, let's keep today 45 minutes. I'm tired. But then we just enter here. And actually, I enjoy to interact with our audience. So I don't feel so tired anymore. I feel good. But yeah, I want to send a special thanks to the audience. We read all of your comments. I don't know if Versan does it the same. I think he even answers to most of the comments, but we truly take a lot of time to see your comments. We appreciate your feedback, your support. Versan, any final thoughts?
Yeah. Well, as a community, we're going to be stronger together. It felt good to kind of talk about that for a second, but listen, I've been on this journey with you all from the very beginning. Those who have been following us, I promise I continue my best to share just insights, perspectives, strategies, and pretty much try my best to guide you with what I'm doing with my own plan, my own strategy. So I'm not telling you something that I'm not already doing, because your success matters to me, because my success matters to my family as well. If you have any questions, if you want to review your financial situation, if you want to talk about anything personalized, I mean, please do reach out. I'll do my best to help. And I love all my supporters, and I try to build relationships with you. I really do, on a personal level.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Drop your location in the comments. That will boost our live streaming. Will get delivered to more people. So it definitely helps out. Let us know where you are based. And yeah, thank you, everyone. We're going to see you next Monday. I know today we did an exception. It was supposed to be Monday, but we're going to do it next Monday. And perhaps we can take more time to answer some questions. I think this format works very well.
Let's get Nathan back on next week.
Yeah. It has been a while.
Okay.
Would be nice to have Nathan back. Thank you, everyone.